Okay, so get ready because today we're going deep into human evolution from this chapter you sent over, Overview of Human Biological Evolution.
Yeah.
It's really kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, going from these single-celled organisms to us recording this deep dive.
Yeah, it really is incredible how much change and adaptation has happened over billions of years.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that really struck me right off the bat was this fact about how many cells are in the human body.
Oh, yeah.
Over 30 trillion.
It's a huge number.
Yeah. I mean, to put it in perspective, that's more cells than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. It's just wild.
Yeah, and it's not just the sheer quantity, it's the diversity, too.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about a big mass of the same cells. There are about 200 different types of cells in our bodies, each with their own specialized function.
Oh, wow. So like a whole little society inside us?
Exactly. You've got your red blood cells carrying oxygen,
Yeah.
your white blood cells fighting off invaders, nerve cells transmitting signals, muscle cells allowing movement, all working together.
And I guess each of those different types has its own lifespan too, right? Some are short-lived, some stick around for a while.
Yeah, definitely some like white blood cells only live for a few days, while others like nerve cells can last a lifetime. It's really quite an intricate system.
It really makes you wonder how all that starts from just, single fertilized egg.
Yeah, well, that's where the magic of cell division and specialization comes in. That single cell contains all the genetic instructions needed to create this incredible complexity, and then environmental cues help guide the development of all the different tissues and organs.
So it's like this amazing dance between our genes and the world around us.
Exactly, a delicate balance.
Wow. So let's take it back even further. The chapter goes all the way back to the beginnings of life on Earth, like 3.8 billion years ago. Can you even imagine what that was like?
It was a completely different planet back then. The first life forms were single-celled organisms, much simpler than even the most basic bacteria we know today.
So even simpler than bacteria. Wow.
Yeah, they didn't even have a nucleus to hold their DNA. But they were incredibly resilient, thriving in conditions that would be toxic to us.
They were like the ultimate survivors paving the way for everything that came after.
Exactly, and one of the most important turning points was the emergence of photosynthesis around 3.5 billion years ago.
Oh yeah, right when organisms started using sunlight to make energy,
Exactly, and that process released oxygen as a byproduct.
which I guess completely changed the Earth's atmosphere, right?
Exactly. It paved the way for the evolution of oxygen-dependent life forms like us.
So it's like photosynthesis wasn't just a big deal for those organisms. It was a game changer for the whole planet.
For sure, it set the stage for a massive explosion of life and diversification. As oxygen levels rose, we started to see the emergence of multicellular organisms, eventually leading to more complex structures like organs and nervous systems.
Speaking of nervous systems, I was fascinated by the part about how the first nerve cells appeared around 600 million years ago. Can you imagine a world without nerves?
It's hard to fathom, right? No senses, no thoughts, no feelings.
It's like the very foundation of our experience as humans.
Absolutely. The evolution of the nervous system was a profound turning point in the history of life.
And to think that every cell in our body carries that legacy within it. It's like we're walking museums of evolutionary history.
I love that analogy. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just isolated individuals, we're deeply connected to all life on Earth through this shared heritage.
And speaking of connections, the chapter mentions how humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor that lived just 5 million years ago, which seems like kind of a blink of an eye considering how long evolution takes.
It is a relatively short period of time, but it's important to remember that evolution isn't linear. It branches out with different lineages adapting to different environments.
So even though we share a lot of our DNA with chimps, we've also been on our own unique evolutionary path.
Exactly. And understanding those differences both in our genes and our behavior is key to unraveling the mysteries of human evolution.
Yeah, it really is incredible how we're connected to all these other life forms, especially chimpanzees. But what about what makes us unique? What sets humans apart in this whole evolutionary story?
Well, one of the key things the chapter highlights is the complexity of our brains. Over those millions of years since we diverged from chimps, our brains have actually tripled in size.
Tripled in size, that's a massive increase. What do they think caused that kind of rapid brain development?
There are a bunch of theories about it, but the chapter focuses on social interaction and tool use as being really important factors. As our ancestors started living in larger, more complex social groups, they needed more brain power to navigate all those relationships and communicate effectively.
Right, like the more social you are, the more you need to keep track of.
Exactly. And on top of that, the development of tools played a big role. To early humans who were good at making and using tools had a survival advantage. They could find food more easily and protect themselves better.
So a bigger brain meant better tools, which in turn led to more complex social structures and behaviors. It's like this self-reinforcing cycle pushing human evolution forward.
Exactly, a kind of positive feedback loop. And that loop also led to the development of language, which further accelerated our evolution.
Language, huh? So we could share knowledge, plan for the future, even think abstractly.
Yeah, it's fascinating how all these elements are intertwined, but even with our big brains and fancy tools, we're still biological beings at the core. And that's where the living link idea comes in the part about RNA and DNA.
Oh yeah, that was really interesting. So our DNA is like a blueprint for building and maintaining our bodies, right?
It's like a set of instructions passed down through generations, but it's even more than that. It's a direct connection to the very first life forms on Earth.
Wow, so you're saying like a part of those single-celled organisms is still alive inside us today?
In a way, yes. Your DNA contains information that has been replicated and passed down for billions of years. It carries echoes of those ancient organisms and their struggle to survive.
It's like we're carrying this library of Earth's history inside us. It's mind-blowing. And it's not just about our own lineage, right? Because all life shares a common ancestor.
Exactly. So our DNA connects us to every other living thing on the planet. We're all related in a very real sense.
It really makes you think about how much is happening beneath the surface, on a cellular level that we're completely oblivious to.
All the time, trillions of cells working away to keep us alive and functioning every breath, every heartbeat, every thought. It's a testament to this incredible orchestration happening inside us.
It definitely puts things in perspective. We get so caught up in our daily lives, but we're part of something so much bigger and older than ourselves.
And this chapter reminds us that we're not just passive passengers in this story. Our choices, our actions, even our thoughts have the potential to influence the future of human evolution.
So we're not just products of our genes, we're also shaping the future of our species.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to understand our evolutionary past and to make choices that benefit both ourselves and future generations.
That's a pretty heavy thought.
Yeah.
This idea of individual responsibility in the context of this whole evolutionary saga, it's a lot to process.
It is, and it leads us to one of the most intriguing concepts in the chapter, the role of consciousness in human evolution.
Okay, so we've gone from those single-celled organisms all the way to complex brains, and even this idea that we're all connected through our DNA, and now we're getting into consciousness. This is where it gets really deep.
It really does, yeah. The chapter talks about this idea that our conscious minds, especially our rational minds, are kind of like temporary caretakers of these ancient biological vessels that are our bodies.
Okay, I'm trying to picture that. So it's like we're driving these incredible machines that have been shaped over billions of years, but we're also the ones at the wheel making decisions about where we go.
That's a great way to put it. We have all this history encoded within us, but we also have this capacity for self-awareness, for making choices that go beyond just basic survival.
It's both exciting and a little intimidating, right? Like we have all this potential, but also this huge responsibility to use it wisely.
Absolutely. The chapter really emphasizes that point. It's not just about understanding where we came from, but also about using that knowledge to make good choices about our lives and our impact on the world, for the future.
So not just looking back, but consciously shaping where we're going.
Exactly. And that goes for everything from our personal health to the choices we make as a society. We have to think about the long-term consequences of our actions, not just for us, but for future generations.
It's like even small everyday choices can ripple out and have a much bigger impact.
For sure. And this chapter encourages us to approach those choices with responsibility and awareness, really understanding how connected everything is.
Wow, this deep dive has really been a journey. We started with the basic building blocks of life and ended up talking about consciousness and our role in this whole grand scheme of evolution. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It's a huge and complex subject, but I think this chapter does a great job of breaking it down into some really key insights. It leaves you with this sense of wonder about our place in the universe and a real appreciation for how we got here.
I totally agree. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. And for anyone listening who wants to dive even deeper, we've got some links in the show notes to some great resources on human evolution.
Yeah, definitely check those out. Keep exploring, stay curious, and remember you're carrying billions of years of history within you.
That's a great point to end on. So that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep those connections in mind, keep asking questions, and keep learning.